Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. In this Raid Shadow Legends video, I want to talk about masteries. You can obviously go into Ayumilove, you can go to HellHades, you can click on a champion, they're going to show you some mastery trees that you can choose from, and then you can copy some of those masteries into your champion in-game. But do you really understand what masteries are all about? Do you understand why certain choices are being made? In this video, I'm going to try to teach you a little bit about what the options are and why certain patterns keep repeating. First, thank you Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video and for giving me this wonderful promo link you can find down below in the description in the QR code that gives you Deacon Armstrong after the tutorial, Uugo at 15, Tagoar at 20, Mausoleum Mage at 30, the best possible start to raid. But then masteries. So masteries are a major source of power for your champions. You can buy a full set of masteries for a champion for 800 gems. No discount, so even if you already have some open, you're still going to pay the full price. Or you can farm those scrolls from Minotaur. And if you want to farm Minotaur, I have a video about farming Minotaur, by the way. You can check that out. But the really short version is that you want to farm stage 15. Farming the other stages is kind of useless. It takes around 2150 energy per champion, which translates into 660 gems at level 60 or 780 gems at level 40. So it will be cheaper, and you're also going to get some silver and XP while you do that. When you choose your masteries, you can and you must use 2 of the 3 trees. So there's the offense, defense and support tree, and you have to choose 2 of those, and you can never pick stuff from all 3. And each new mastery has to be either vertically, horizontally or diagonally linked to an existing mastery. From the first row, you will have 1 mastery in both trees, then 2 in one on the other, for all the others except for the final row where you can only choose 1 mastery, so you can only go 1 tree all the way. You can skip ahead without filling the entire row as well, by the way, so you can grab that final mastery before you have all the scrolls. And the final row mastery can only be chosen once the champion is rank 6. And you can reset your masteries once for free per champion, and thereafter it's going to cost you 150 gems. So these trees and then the rows on them that are also called tiers. So there's tier 1, tier 2, up to tier 6 masteries. First row or first tier, 1 in 2 of these trees, then 2 plus 1, 2 plus 1, 2 plus 1, 2 plus 1, and that can vary. So you can choose 2 from one tree and 1 row, and then 2 from another for another row, and the final row, only 1 mastery allowed. And every mastery that you choose has to be linked to a mastery that you already own, either vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. And that is causing many of these same patterns to repeat. And also, as long as you have the right types of scrolls, you can skip ahead. Like for example here, War Master has been unlocked after only 1 tier 5 mastery. So if you choose your tier 5 mastery correctly, then you can get your tier 6 mastery before you unlock the rest of tier 5. Then let's go look at some actual masteries and the certain patterns that keep repeating. When you look at masteries for champions, these patterns they come in time and time again. For example, the offense tree. A basic damage dealing build against bosses looks something like this. It starts with the crit rate, because the attack is pretty bad, so you choose between attack and crit rate. The attack is very low, and of course if the champion doesn't even use attack, if it's a HP champion, if it's a defense champion, crit rate is your only option. And then you go through the crit damage, well, because that crit damage is just damage, you get additional damage from that. And then you move on towards typically War Master. So the 3 bottom row abilities in the offense tree are incredibly powerful. So whenever there is a champion that wants to deal damage, no matter what stat it uses, it wants to get one of those 3. So there's War Master, the leftmost one. It's best at low and mid stats, and with A1 abilities that hit fewer than 3 times. So, but it's viable still. Even if it hits 3 times, it's viable still if you have high stats. So War Master is kind of like the basic choice, and you're definitely going to start out with War Master. Then there's Helm Smasher, second from left, and that's the one that ignores some of the target's defense sometimes, and it becomes better and better as your stats go higher. I haven't done the full math on that one. I don't know all the formulas to do that math yet, but in some contexts, I've heard that you would need like 7,500 attack at least before you start considering Helm Smasher, but I might try to find out more about it eventually. Then there's Giant Slayer, the third from the left. Has 30% chance of inflicting bonus damage when attacking, so now lower chance, but each hit counts. It's competitive if the champion's A1 hits at least 3 times, but the path to it is a little bit harder to build because, as you can see, there's no connecting pieces right now. If we just go through the basic damage dealing build against bosses, which includes damage when the opponent has better maximum health than you do, and then of course that War Master at the end. So for boss damage, some of these sustained battles, you want to go through the left line, but then if you're in arena, then some of the stuff on the right becomes more tempting. So this is something like what an arena nuker build is going to look like. Hit them hard, then you can blast through shields, and you can deal more damage on your first hits, so more for short battles. More damage quickly, and this can actually be combined with the boss damage one, because you can take both of the stuff on the left side and then you can take stuff on the right side to get all of that arena things done, because you can pick 2 from the same row. So if you use all of your stuff on the offense tree, all that you can, then you can combine boss damage and arena damage just fine. And if you were to take the idea of just beating everything on a single round very seriously, then you would end up with a build something like this, which would be useful for campaign farming if you have a dedicated campaign farmer and it's just going to one-shot everything and go through all the stages. So then you would have something looking like this, but maybe you don't have a dedicated campaign farmer, so this might not be quite as useful. And this one actually ends with the 4th option from the last row, Flawless Execution, critical damage plus 20%, because that adds additional damage every single time you attack. Then there's the defense tree, which I suppose is generally considered to be the weakest of the trees, but defense tree has some excellent stuff going on because there's the retribution. So you often want to build a path towards retribution for many sorts of damage dealers, even though it's a defense tree. So retribution has a 50% chance to counterattack when this champion loses 25% of their max HP or more from a single enemy skill, and that really gives you a lot of attacks. And you typically want to build the path towards it something like this. So you reduce AoE damage that you take, you remove some debuffs, you reduce damage from a single enemy. Then on tier 3 there is a choice between that chance to remove debuffs or then healing yourself when enemies heal. And then you end up with the retribution, and optionally you can also add deterrence, has a 20% chance to counterattack an enemy when they apply crowd control debuffs on your allies, but that's not nearly as necessary. So often you would see a damage dealer champion that has the offense tree, and then they have defense tree that gives them those counterattacks if they don't have to apply debuffs. The defense tree can also be used by support champions, even though you don't necessarily want them to counterattack. So in that case, at tier 5, you change it to give turn meter when allies are hit with critical hits. So an arena healer, especially critical hits happen mostly on arena. The bosses don't have that much crit. But on arena, you are going to get crit all the time. So that's going to give turn meter for your healer all the time. Optionally, both these sorts of builds can be combined with a tier 6 mastery that increases chance of crowd control debuffs. For champions that are dedicated to those, but they don't have a 100% chance to apply them. But then again, you're giving up a lot because you can only take one single tier 6 mastery. So that's not one of the best ones. And then there's the support tree, and support tree is probably the most interesting of these trees because there's a lot of stuff that you can do with support tree, and this is about accuracy. So an accuracy and a debuffing build. It usually follows the line, but there's a lot of optionality here. So the price at tier 5, Master Hexer, has a 30% chance to extend the duration of any debuff cast by this champion, will not extend the crowd control debuff, so bombs. But that Master Hexer, just getting those longer debuffs, that's the real price there. There's also Cycle of Magic on the same tier. That has a 5% chance of decreasing the cooldown of a random skill by 1 turn at the start of every turn. That can be a detriment at Amius though, so Cursed City beware. There's Evil Eye, decreases the target's turn meter when this champion hits them with the default skill for the first time. Decreases turn meter by 20% with single target skills and 5% with AoE skills, of course once per target. So there's some options there, because the Lore of Steel increases base stats at bonus for all artifacts that increase base stats by 15%, and that's multiplicative. So in practice, for example, one of the champions that has this for me has like 40 defense and 1 speed or something like that. So Yeah, those base stat bonuses, increasing them isn't necessarily all that great, but in order to get to that Master Hexer, you may have to make some choices like that. So Sniper on tier 5 increases chance of placing any debuff from skills or artifacts by 5%, so works with stuff like Toxic Set, for example, or works with any debuff abilities that don't have a 100% chance, but they do have to place debuffs. It doesn't work with anything else, and it doesn't place the crowd control debuffs either. So there are some nice things. And finally, on the very final tier, there is plus 50 accuracy available, mostly for use in arena. If you really want to be able to land pretty much anything in an arena, then that is an option as well. But something like this accuracy debuffs on the right side of the support tree, whereas the left side of the support tree is for heals and buffs. So typically you would go down the left side, optionally go all the way to tier 6 for timely intervention, increases this champion's turn meter by 20% whenever an ally hero drops below 25%. So that's a pretty big deal for healers. So that can be quite strong. You can also include the Cycle of Magic, the chance to decrease cooldowns into this build. And then on tier 2, there's the Shield Bearer, increase the value of shield buffs this champion casts by 5%. Almost every other mastery here affects heals and shields. So even if you just do heals, then you pick them up, of course. But that one is only shield, so it's a little bit more optional. But these are the patterns that repeat time and time and time again, champion after champion. You have that sort of baseline that you go through, depending on what you want to do, and then you have a couple of options because you get to choose 2 for one of the trees on tiers 2 to 5, and then you can customize it a little bit. You go to baseline for 2 of the things that you want to do, then you can grab a couple of custom options, and that basically makes up the masteries of your champion. So in the support tree, there's this healer and buffer, and there's this accuracy and debuffer. And in defense, there's this damage reduction and counterattack, or damage reduction and turn meter increase. And in the offense tree, regardless of what stat your champion actually uses to attack, there's this damage dealing build against bosses, nuking in the arena, or farming the campaign. So those are like the general archetypes that you're able to build out of all of these mastery trees. And some combination of those is most likely going to be the mastery selection for all of your champions, depending on what exactly you want them to do. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.